You're winning. You're winning. You're winning.
You are winning with another episode of Epic Understanding. I am your host, Coach Erica Love. I am so happy that you are here with me tonight. Let me pop this back up here. Hold on. Guys, how would you answer this question? Is there a lonely single men epidemic? I'm curious about this question. I have some very smart people here tonight. They're not just smart, okay, but they are involved in the game. And so they have experience in what they have to say. So I'm so thrilled to have all these awesome, beautiful, intelligent, glorious people with me tonight. And I must start with the ladies. Listen, when you see her smile, she's going to blow your mind. All right, hold up. Hey, Latoya, how you doing, girlfriend? Mrs. Jones.
Hello, I'm doing great.
Awesome, awesome. Now, I must thank you because you are the person who first brought this article to my attention. I said, oh my, we must go there. We must go there. So,
Absolutely.
how did you come upon it?
Um, the article, I I scroll through TikTok a lot, and I observe because I am a PhD student in psychology, and I like
Mhm.
to observe people and research things. And when this article popped up, I was like, okay, this makes sense because this is what I was learning in cultural psychology. This is what I was learning in developmental psychology,
Okay.
and I was like, this is actually clicking. And let me go ahead and read this article. So I read the
Okay.
article, and I was like, this has some of my own experiences in it too. So
Okay. Well, we won't get too far in it. I think you want to save a little bit, but
absolutely.
um, let us bring up. You know what? I'm going to save Dr. Lay for last. He's backstage laughing. He's backstage laughing. Mr. Perry, how you doing, sir?
Good evening. How's everyone doing?
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Tell us a little bit about what you've been working on and how you help people on a daily basis.
Whew, feels like I dedicate my life to helping people sometimes. Well, actually, I do. So, by trade, I am a social worker, MSW. So, I graduated from St. Louis University in 2019, which was the same year that we started the Village Healing and Writing Circle. And honestly, now that I'm thinking it through and talking it through with you right now, and formulating the words and opinions, I actually started it because I was actually lonely at the time. I had moved to a new city, and this is not something we actually talked about earlier. But now that I'm thinking it through, and actually I just glanced at the article you sent,
Okay, okay,
the reason why we started it was because I wasn't from St. Louis, and my partner Brian Antoine wasn't from St. Louis, and we
okay.
kind of wanted to a way to make connections with men in the area because as you get older, it's not always easy to make connections with other men. I'm not really good at playing basketball. I'm not going to do that. Not going to embarrass myself. So I'm not going to go to the Y and you
Okay.
guys. So again, we started the Hills and Writing Circle, and then we've done other things. We pay for Black men to get free therapy, and we do a little podcast. We work with young men. I work with young men during the day at an all boys Catholic school. So those are some of the
Mhm.
ways in which I help people.
I'll tell you what. I've seen many organizations. I told you earlier, but you are one of the first organizations that I feel that speaks directly to my heart in that you connect men's mental health specifically with manhood and masculinity. Um, Other groups are definitely working on masculinity, but I believe that you are as specific as I am about the idea of mental health and masculinity. I celebrate you. You are a man after my own heart, so I can't wait to dig in with you. And I'm gonna bring my guy up here. What's up, Dr. Lay?
Look, I'm actually look, Perry, I'm a fan already. Dead
You know
serious.
what? Be
I'm
a
a fan.
fan. Be
I'm
a
a fan
fan.
already. I'm dead serious because I already know I'm definitely gonna link you. I know you're gonna be on all social media sites, so I'm definitely gonna connect.
Appreciate that, my good
I
brother.
would
Appreciate
love
that.
to know and see what you all are doing. That's awesome.
Look him
Uh,
up. Look it
yeah.
up.
So this
Now,
is such
without further ado, what's up, Dr. Lay? How
what's
you
going
doing?
on? Look, we have tag teamed so many times. I feel like you are just like my road dog and my inspiration, man.
Yes,
So
yes.
this topic is dear to
Tag
my heart.
team back
Yeah,
again.
this is
You know
such a
what? We
deep
got some
topic.
more stuff. I tagged you on something earlier today.
Oh,
Somebody,
I saw that with the murder.
yeah, with the murder.
Oh, I had to go research that. I couldn't believe it. I was shy. I even shared it with some of my colleagues. I was like, "Did you know this?"
Right, right,
So
right.
it's
So
really.
we have to go there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We
I'm down. I'm down with it.
okay.
Let me know
All
when.
right. All right.
So,
So, excellent. For those who don't know how awesome and smart you are and the kind of things you work on, can
uh,
you tell the folks?
I'm gonna sum it up real quickly. It is all about men, boys, emotional intelligence, and empathy, and it really speaks to this topic we're going to talk about today. So I'm here ready to learn, hear from the others as well, and then give my take. But I focus on emotional intelligence and empathy because I do believe that is the foundation. It should be the foundation of communication, and understanding amongst boys and men, so that we can have meaningful relationships and be very competent in our masculinity, in our adulthood, making informed decisions about our lives, and that's across all platforms and domains. So that's what I'm geared towards and focused on.
Excellent. All
Yeah.
right, let's get into it. Bam, bam, bam. All right, I got everybody up here, and thank you for the lovely introductions and taking this time out to cover this subject. I will say this. Look, the article itself is actually about adult men, but the reason why I wanted to bring in Perry is because he works with young boys right before they get to manhood. And it is not as if this loneliness gap starts when you reach maturity. The foundation for this is there in the first place. Now, Latoya, you have young boys, well, young men. You raised your boys into men, and you've been walking down this path and studying this, for some time. What is your take on this subject matter?
I agree with the gentleman. Emotional intelligence, teaching emotional intelligence, and giving your boys the room to
Mhm.
um, to express their emotions at a young age is absolutely important. Like, even though my children's father and I haven't been together for the longest time, we've been divorced probably longer than we were married. We
Mhm.
made a decision to allow our children, our boys, to grow up with the safety to express their emotions. And that was very important. And now I can see it reflect on how they treat their significant others. They're very attentive to their significant others. They're very understanding. They don't raise their voice. They
Mm.
don't feel the need to like have a fight where there's cussing and loudness. It was it's kind of like, oh, because I can see it in my book and
Mhm.
actually see it reflecting in my children before I even started studying psychology.
So, do you think that adverse childhood experiences, period, create loneliness?
Do I think adverse childhood experiences create loneliness? Um,
Mhm.
that is a great question. I would say it's a part of it. Um,
Okay.
I think the increase of it right now is social media, honestly.
Okay. Yeah.
I think we can't have this conversation without talking about social media,
Hmm.
especially not just social media, but technology in general, and the relationship people have with technology, especially young people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, at one point when you walked into a coffee shop, people were interacting with each other. Now you walk in and no one's talking to each other. Same thing with the lunchroom, um, and common areas that children roam, and chat rooms, and different things. It's a reason why statistically the STD rates are down, teen pregnancy is down, which is one of the positive things, I guess you would say, of young people not interacting with each other. But
Mm-hmm.
the adverse effect of that is you have a group of young people who've been in quarantine, who've been away from each other, who don't interact with each other the way they used to. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, I would say so. Yeah, I think it all equates. It's all sort of cyclical, and a lot of it
Okay.
starts in childhood. Yep.
All right. Dr. Lay.
Yeah, I have to agree with that too, and I think one of the things I see, especially in young men, the isolation is definitely real. Not knowing how to communicate has been the biggest hurdle. The communication is what's supposed to be intentional, which is
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be its purpose. I think a lot of them shy away from that. They're not really having that level of confidence, and it could be literally just vocabulary. It could be the backlash that we hear a lot of. Well, when I talk to young men, a lot of it has to be when I ask, are you dating or things of that nature, and a lot of it has to do with fear of rejection. Don't know how to handle that piece. And so I definitely think, and to Perry's point, Jones as well, just social media, a big part of it. The pandemic definitely hasn't helped over the past 2 years, 3 years roughly. We're getting back out there now and everything. So yeah, definitely, there are a couple of factors there.
Mm-hmm. So I want to give you some pushback on this idea of social media being the culprit. In all actuality, I think it might be a healing source. You know, a hammer is a weapon and a tool. I feel the same way about social media. Okay. The reality is, if you use the item to connect, then we can grow. But if you use this media source to isolate, then that's exactly what it will do. You know, um, speak to that for me, Latoya.
Um, I 100% agree with that. If you even scroll through TikTok, you can see one moment somebody's bashing somebody, and then you can see one moment somebody's uplifting somebody. It depends. It just depends. But I want to give a little pushback on that too, because it's like the development, because the children are not really seeing the full picture. They're only seeing snippets of other people's lives, and that can actually conflict on how they're feeling inside, especially men, especially young men, or who are like, excuse me, boys who are growing into men, and their cognitive development and their um, development processes, like social development. They're only seeing little snippets, and some of that little snippets can be harmful, and the bad might outweigh the good for them at a time, because they might be able to relate to the bad more than good, depending on their circumstances within their own homes, or what they're dealing with their own lives. So it definitely depends on the individual and how their home life is, but I do agree that it can be a tool as well.
Okay, I think that's fair enough. It was your original statement, Perry. So, what are your thoughts?
I like the analogy of the hammer, being the weapon or the tool. And it also depends on monitoring what our kids do on social media, monitoring how long they spend on social media, and things of that nature. So like Ms. Jones said, it depends um, on the relationship, honestly. Whether like TikTok is a great thing, from what people have been telling me, depending on what you're looking at. Um, But we have to figure out some things, and sometimes some things we're just spitballing. But it's a reason why men kill people at a larger rate than women, not just all men. So the inner city, you have men killing men. You have mostly white men who go on shooting sprees, whether it's schools or whether it's your local Walmart or your supermarket. So basically we're all trying to figure out why there's an increase of these things. Some people say it's video games. Some people say it's social media. So I wouldn't just quantify it by studying social media. I would say technology in general. And that's gaming, that's social media, that's pretty much the whole gamut of things.
Okay, Dr. Lay, you are on, and I'm going to put this comment back up here.
Yeah, this is so. I think so. What I was thinking about with social media was the play on with the sexual exploitation in social media, making it easy, accessible to look at women and to look at them as objects and not as communication. It doesn't build communication skills, right? And so a lot of men get addicted to that, the same way they would do with gaming, the same thing that they would do with um, well, when I say gaming, I'm talking about video gaming, right? Is what drives that impulse. And so the more things that are revealing, I think that plays, so in social media, I thought that plays a huge part. Another part that I see in young adults is their loss of identity. A loss of identity can come from lack of fatherhood, but then also we are entering in a new direction now when we're looking at the role of masculinity, the role of men now, as far as that whole provider and protector role, if you will, very traditional norms, and those things are now being challenged. And so I think men are having to adjust as well. But with the lack of father figures, with the lack of that direction, and I speak of emotional intelligence because that intrapersonal and interpersonal skill set is very valuable at a very young age. It is something that is taught that every person has the potential of learning, but by the time they become teenagers and they have their hormones raging at the same time, but yet you don't know how to communicate, you don't know how to come in at a level of respect because you're being influenced by what's being drilled to you from social media or even your other friends or whatever. It does make it difficult, and again, that fear of rejection, not knowing how to handle that emotion, not knowing how to handle that and say, you know what, that was her, but let me give a shot to this one, or let me be genuine in this area here, or whatever. They rather shut that down and they say, you know what, this is just I literally had a young guy tell me the other day, he was like, man, girls are trash. He literally said that. Yeah, he's 19 years old. And so I said, what do you mean girls are trash? He was like, yo, man, every single one of them, nobody's a virgin. I looked at him and he's 19. So I'm like, are you a virgin? And he was like, I am, and I was like, okay, stump me, because literally the way his swag is, and I'm gonna say swag because he does have a really good swag about him. You would have never known that. You would have thought he was out there kind of, doing his thing, but it's his scapegoat, it's his defense, right? But for him to say that at 19 years old, that means that literally either one, he's looking at the wrong, thing, or his belief system is having him value women in a totally different direction, and he's not pleased with that, So we try very hard to get guys to really look at what kind of belief system they have, how do they see women, how they see themselves in the world. And when they realize that they don't have necessary skills to go out there and actually pair bond with others, they really have a difficult time. And so that's causes them to withdraw. So there is a lot of, that article was spot on as far as, and I'm talking about loneliness, which is emotions, right? It's a difference between being lonely and being alone. They straight up lonely. They got friends, but they are lonely when it comes to, and men naturally, honestly, I mean, I'm a guy. Naturally, we actually want to be with a partner. We actually want to be together, but if you don't know how to do that, and you don't have the patience,
Interesting. Did I freeze?
Oh yeah. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Hello, everybody. Am I here? Am I back with you?
Yes,
Okay,
you
good,
are.
good. Listen, for the record, if I ever have a connection problem, you guys just keep going and keep the show rocking. Thank you to the magic of StreamYard. The stream does not cut off. The show must go on. Okay. And
Yeah.
so we will keep it going. That said, in the scenario with the young man that you were speaking of, there are so many. Loneliness is like the least of his issues, just in the little bit that you
Mm.
told me, because
Yeah.
he literally said that girls or women, I forgot how he phrased it, are trash.
Mhm.
And you said why, and he said because nobody's a virgin.
And he hit me with that one, and luckily we was 1-on-1, because I don't think he would have told me he was a
Well,
virgin.
no,
I just don't, so
then he
he-
said,
yeah,
then you went, are you a virgin? Because
yeah.
you went down the exact same path.
Thinking I'm gonna challenge him, right?
Right. And
Straight
then
shut
he
that
said
down.
yes. So
Yeah.
everybody's self-worth is based off of their virginity. I, my mind goes back to the woman at the well, and
Mm.
then I'm wondering, does anybody have any stones to throw? It's
Well,
like,
and I think he basically was just saying that, when we used to have a direction on how we court women, how we establish relationships, but we did have father figure roles there too, you know. So I think it's a domino effect, definitely. But the choosing isolation, I will say the only part about that piece, and I'm not even sure if it's that choosing isolation, but it's I don't think they're choosing isolation. I think they're being forced to accept isolation, to loneliness. They're not choosing it because
yes.
they don't want loneliness. They actually want to be in relationships, but they think the gaming and all of that stuff, and I'm talking about playing games, not being genuine, getting hurt, being played, all that kind of stuff. They're very hyper vigilant about that nowadays.
For me, it almost feels like a self-fulfilling prophecy in this. If you misvalue the people that you need to connect with, it's like you have wrong directions. It's like being asked to build something, and I give you the wrong directions to build the item that you were the place that you were trying to build. Or let me just say this: if I dropped you in California, but gave you a map to New York, and I told you to go find your way, you'd be lost all the time. And that's what it feels like is going on here. I want to point out two things. I believe men are chiefly lonely, not because they cannot have proper relationships with women. I believe they're chiefly lonely because they do not have proper relationships with other men. That's my take on it. And wait a minute, go ahead, get them, girl. Say it. No, not really get them, but think about that, because who is this? Somebody pointed it out, and they said, no, there is a fatherhood epidemic. Okay.
Hmm.
When men do not have proper relationships with men, then they fail to self identify and regulate appropriately. One of the first things told about Perry and I noticed about him is his ability to navigate without being, um, just to use the normative language, too alpha or too beta. I don't even buy into those things, but he is straight down the line. He's not into any hyper masculinity, but he's also not like, well, whatever you say, you know. He takes this situation for what it is and navigates it from his perspective, from his preferences, and with the understanding of how you fit into the scenario as an external person. Being able to do that is huge. It is huge. Now, obviously, he didn't come out the box that way. He's grown to get like that, but that is where he is right now. And truly, that's where we need to be as humans. That said, men sometimes don't do the work because what's represented in society is one way or the other. And when you guys get together, you tend to push one another one way or the other. Okay. So you need that reflective mirror amongst men to honor someone who is straight down the middle, like Perry, so that you can reflect how to be that way on a regular basis. Some things are caught and some things are taught. This, my friends, I believe, is caught, and that's what he's given to his youth. And Perry, since I'm talking about you, go ahead and take the floor, dear sir.
I know I'm about to blush for a dark skinned person. All these nice things being said about me. Um, but with
I
Dr.
won't keep
Lay,
telling the truth about you, sir. I won't keep telling the truth.
but just to reverberate what Dr. Lay was saying, and I was just waiting for a chance to agree with the brother, is that I hear those same exact things. I work with boys, age 14 to 18 every single day. And we have one of the topics that we discuss in our class. I teach a class on mental health. And the first thing we cover is sorry about that. The first thing I cover is masculinity. Um, and one of the things one of my boys was telling me one day, he said something similar. I don't remember the exact quote, but I was like, "Where do you get this from? Like, where do you get your negative thoughts on women from?" And he was like, "Well, these models on IG," and I'm like, "Hold up, wait a minute, sir." Like, first of all, you are 16, 17. You work at AutoZone, so you need to date and have dreams about where you are. You know what I mean? Like, number one, like we just talked about, social media isn't a real litmus test of people, right? Even me, I'm not who I am 100% on social media. I post with a gram and flex with a gram too, right? I show people what I want them to see about my personality online, right?
Mhm.
And the same thing I assume would be for IG models. But also, if you're conditioned to think that those are the only women in the world, when he has a representative of a beautiful black woman in his household through his mother, who I know and met. But to him, the IG model is it, right? And it's like, number one, like I said, you need to aim for where you are. So you need to aim for that coworker that's working with you at AutoZone, and not this, model who's making however many dollars off of her beauty on social media. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to kind of make sure we hammered that point home of what Dr. Lay was saying, and even when you look at other podcasts and the toxic manosphere of male podcasts and the things that are going on in those hemispheres from adult men who you would think would know better. We don't have to name any of these people. We know who they are. There's a lot of them. Too many to name. Um, and they give men who podcast a bad name. They give men a bad name. They give men of whatever ethnicity they're from a bad name. And it's just all bad, honestly. Some of the toxic things that are out there about women are tragic. And it's a reason why, if you go to the old folks' home, it's a lot of lonely old men in those homes, right? Men who dated too late, like myself. I didn't get married until I was in my mid 30s. Um, and for a bunch of reasons too. So it's only so long you could be a gigolo. It's an old word, excuse me, showing my
Yeah,
age.
yeah.
But it's only so long you can run the streets and be that. So, like Dr.
There's
Lee was
a
also saying, it's
song for
about
that.
partnering. Mhm. Yeah, right.
Well, you want to know something? I feel like there should be a class on how to use social media um, for good, so to speak. And it would make as much, falling in love with the Instagram model is like falling in love with the jet model from back in the day. Come on, it's the same thing. There's always someone out there being bootylicious. There's It really is. Latoya, speak on this subject matter for me, please.
I think okay, well, there's so much. There is so much. That's probably why my dissertation is about the sexual liberation of Black women. There's so much because there's this idea when it comes down to purity culture. Purity culture is intertwined with all that as well. How we view women, how they should be. Like that young man said, like women or girls are trash because they're not virgins, and you said like you can't really base somebody's personality off of that. But and it's also about that toxic podcast, like reinforcing all that and saying what a woman is doing with her body is really not good if you want a good girl and if you're trying to have a relationship and so forth and so forth. And I think that's very misleading, because what a woman does with her body is exactly like her business. And I'm trying to keep it I'm trying to keep it like in a box. Like I'm trying not to get like riled up because I can do a whole dissertation on it. But when men see like women actually taking control, not all men, but men from that toxic part of that masculinity, see women taking an autonomy over their body, I don't know why it's a trigger for them to want to try to control what they want to, like what the woman wants to do. And that's always been a conflict for me. And that's one thing that I'm doing with my dissertation, is seeing why. And I think it's just the history of the purity culture, or how our society is set up, especially when it comes down to Black women and Black men, all the way back in slavery times, how we interacted with each other and how everything just kind of flowed all the way through. And if we want to get serious about it, how patriarchy and white supremacy goes right in hand with that. And now I believe that at that time that Black men was like, oh, okay, I'm going to do what they say and treat my woman like this because this is what I see. And Black women are like, well, no. This is not how you treat us. This is not how we need to be treated. But there was really, our culture was stripped away from us. So that trickles down the line, that how Black men treat Black women, or how white men treat their women. So having that, I don't know if I'm being clear about that, but having no cultural role model and going down the line of how we should be without a patriarchy, without white supremacy, without that purity culture that's kind of toxic. I think men are trying to find their way, and social media is kind of fogging that too, while women is trying to gain the autonomy of our own bodies. I think men are getting fogged up with the social media as well. So it's a lot to dive into, and it plays on their emotions. Like, okay, wait, are we supposed to be this way? Are we supposed to be the protector and provider? And we're like, well, we can't be. Women are like, well, we can be, we can make our own money. We have our own autonomy and stuff like that. And we're growing in emotional intelligence. And men are like, okay, what are we supposed to be doing? Because the patriarchy is keeping their growth stunt. That's what I've seen on that side too. And to make another point, I think what Perry said, I was trying to write as many notes down as possible, and I'm probably all over the place. But I think what Perry said, and you said too, I've also noticed there's no room for men to actually feel safe with making those connections with each other, even past the teenage years, to continue to develop that emotional intelligence, like especially when they're with women, when they're actually in serious relationships, when they're coming in that conflict, giving that good advice to each other. Like if they need to vent, or if they need to just, cry or be angry or so forth, and actually work it out in a healthy way with each other and having that connection or relationship with each other. It's not looked as masculine to be able to talk about those things amongst your male friends. And I think that's also something that's being reinforced in that area as well. I don't know if I made sense, but I
No,
hope it did.
very, very interesting. So you you went it's not that I haven't heard this before, but we are here now, so we're going to talk about it. This idea that um, the connection with purity came from a European mindset. I happen to have my friend here, Olu, and he is from Nigeria. And so I want to hear what he has to say about that, because I think that's a very popular narrative. At the same time, I feel like there might need to be some pushback on that. I'll go to a good source. Hi, Olu. How are you?
Hi, Coach Love. Hi, everyone. This is a good one. Hello, Dr. Rahim, and
Yeah.
Latoya, and Brother Jamal. I truly appreciate this opportunity to really be able to come have this conversation, and I'm very delighted, for some of the things that have been said so far along this conversation about, single wise men, single men, loneliness with single men. I think it's a very profound subject, in the sense that it kind of touched the heart of what some of us, me personally, is experiencing as a person now. So I think I can speak and use my own personal experience, personal story to kind of shed a bit of more light, into what I think, in my own humble opinion on what is going on. But to just make a point to what Latoya was kind of referring to, that this European idea of how the white, take care of their women, how they try to make them, to be queen in any way. They don't want them to go out there and get exposed to the struggle of working, and or trying to make ends meet for themselves, and want to make sure that everything is provided for them. That's what I believe white men try to do. They try to be absolute provider, and black men in some sense, don't really get it as well. Perhaps they don't even have the opportunity to do so, because the society that they have, put them in a position where whatever work they have to do is not going to be enough for them to take care of the family, that the women don't have to go out there and also have to do something. So that difference in financial support, that white men could have, because they have good jobs, or they have a financial means to provide for their women, which keep the family union going, as opposed to the black men not being able to have that financial stability, and they have to constantly go out there to survive. And women also at some point have to go out there and help to support the family. It's kind of bring in this dichotomy of differences. So there's no cultural, foundation as to how, um, the union ought to be, to really make it to be the best and to function accordingly. So I think there is something to be said about that, because it's so true, and but society is also changing, right? It's changing fast. That to understand each other, this in this case, men and women, is also very much important. Even though the financial part is so important too, right? Because we all know that divorces happen because of some financial issues that is happening within the family, within the house. So let's say the woman is going to demand that this guy could not just provide for me. He could not give me money maybe every 2 weeks to go make my hair, and and because of that, I'm going to leave him. And then when you leave that man is kind of confused and just don't know what else to do, and he just want to remain single. But I will stop there for now, and unless
So I'm gonna be a little bit of a troublemaker.
Well, wait. Before you go in there, wait. Can I just speak to Jones's statements that she made, though?
No.
Coach,
Go ahead, Dr. Lake. Go ahead.
Because I gotta. I'm definitely gonna push back a little, but I'm my job right now is to use. I want to use historical data, but I also want us to understand culture as well, right? Because even though we speak a lot, and we do hear this, a lot of people talking about slavery and things of that nature, and what happens, and all
I will
that.
put you back. Wait, I want to before because you might step all over me, and I want to.
No, I'm not.
I want to hand you the ball after I do this because I think you're gonna be able to pick this up. Because what I want to say is the math. How do they say it these days? The math not mathing. They say that these days. If the earth used to be all put together, okay? All the continents used to touch, all the land used to touch, okay? And we believe that civilization started in Africa. That is what we commonly accepted, okay? Historically, we would then believe that the people in biblical times were brown people. They were of a brown nature. Okay. The stories in the Bible from people who are a brown nature were oppressive to women in many ways. I'm not saying that we didn't have beautiful leaders that were female in the Bible, but there was a reason why if a woman didn't have a husband, it was just tragedy. Okay, it was just tragedy for her. It's a reason why we have the stories like the woman at the well and the woman who was getting stoned to death and things of this nature. All right, those are issues. Now, if we believe that those stories were about brown people and original man, we can't also say, well, this idea of the woman being of a lower class is about European culture. The math ain't mathing, as they say. Those two don't align. And really, Dr. Lay, I would like you to pick it up there because of your research, numbers, and historical self. Pick that up.
Why you gotta? So I'm not I'm not big in the biblical sense though, but I respect the stories that are in there, and you're absolutely right. The idea of an institution when we're talking about marriage, and I think that it was for me, being a married man myself, being committed to my wife, is that I understood the institution to have certain rules, values, and morals, and there were certain rules in there that we should follow as men and as women, where we played when we had these different roles. I've never once taken the role, the perception that women were lower than men. That's just me, right? Because when I study ancient Kemet, and I study how men and women, how the men honored the women, right? This is the oldest civilization. This is the oldest dynasty, right? So when they talked about a man, woman, and child, they actually identified that as the Holy Trinity. And that meant a virgin man and a virgin woman get together, and then they have a child. That was the Immaculate Conception. And so there was a level of respect. When you go to Egypt now, you look at you go to the pyramids, you see the writings and the hieroglyphics, they still acknowledge the woman. I mean, you wear the there's there's some people that wear the unk who they know what the unk represents. I'm not going to get into that, but fast forward in the ideologies behind our institution of marriage in America, a lot of it had to do with identifying that these were two individuals who were equal in value but different in roles. And those roles were clearly identified. What people don't talk about, though, and this is the thing that gets me a little irritated, what people don't talk about when they talk about that the feminist movement, and this is the third stage here, right? The second was 1960, but a lot of people don't talk about what went down in the late 1800s, where if you were to pay into taxes or if you were voting, you had to actually sign up for the draft as well. And women actually elected not to do that. But nobody talks about that. And that went on all the way up to the 1960s. But people don't talk about why women weren't voting. It was because you had to declare for the draft, and that was a no-go, right? And it is documented heavy. But here's the other thing. There's a study that just went out when it came to women and the sexual liberation that we're seeing today. And I think this is what's confusing men, because men honor purity. That's just what it is. Okay. I don't know why we're biologically wired that way, but we don't like, there's a reason why women don't tell their body count. There's a reason why women would literally degrade other women if she was out there and exploiting herself. That's coming from women, right? So men do honor that, but they literally show a woman who had 5 partners or more had a 30% chance of actually being in a healthy pair bond marriage. A woman that had 10 or more, down to 7%. A woman that's a virgin, 90%. This is biological. Something is up with that. And I don't understand it from a biological sense, but a lot of men literally getting out there thinking, oh, if I get with this woman and I get married, then I have access to her body. I have access to intimacy because that is what we were told. This is true. And a lot of that may be changing. It may be changing, don't get me wrong.
I think you're making a chicken or the egg argument.
No, I'm not. What I'm saying is there are certain things that are innately that are biologically connected to
No, but
us.
I think you're just doing that off of
no, coach.
Yeah, you are.
When you, coach, when you
Wait
do
a minute.
that,
No,
coach, wait, hold on, Coach Love, hold on. When you do that,
let her speak. Let her speak. I'll come back to you. I promise.
Let me just say this one piece, and I'll let you speak, Joan. But when you
Latoya, go ahead. He won't. Go ahead. He won't stop. Go ahead. I promise. Yeah, go ahead. I promise.
I'm gonna be a troublemaker because I'm gonna ask Dr. Lay, like, could you put the research? Could you put the study in the chat?
I did. I actually had it up, and so my computer, this part of my computer went out, but I actually had it up because I thought I'd get to read it. But somebody, but I'm definitely.
Pull it up. Stop talking. Go find it.
Hold on. Let me find it. Hold on. Let me go back on mute since I'm the troublemaker.
No, you're not the troublemaker. I am. I am,
because I have my undergraduate degree is in women and gender studies, and I've been once upon a time I wanted to be a doctor, like a medical doctor, and study medical apartheid and stuff like that, and the history of that. I just wanted to
I'm sorry. Are you
said biologically and all that good stuff.
You talking about the parabon part, or which part are you talking about? I'm sorry. The study I had was when women, the body count. They were talking about the body count.
The body count, yes, because that is a very I wanted to look at the references and who funded the research and where the research came from, and how old that research is, what year was it, and like what institution it came out of. I'm not checking it for credibility. I'm actually interested in it.
Dr. Lay is convinced that.
Wait, you should be looking for credibility because that's important, right?
Well, I already know it's going to be credible. Because I'm pretty sure you're not going to send me because you earned the DR. I'm trying to get the DR. I'm pretty sure you're not going to send me junk.
Steve wants to know what article you're looking for. I think he wants to help you. We can't hear you, Dr. Lay.
It was talking about parabonding, and it was saying, are women too liberated? Basically, is what the question holds. And it was just talking about the interview that they did, where they interviewed a bunch of women who were literally they looked at the divorce track, women who were getting in and out of relationships, and women who had multiple fiancés but broke them off or whatever have you. And what they were asking was how many relationships as far as intimacy. That,
I think that's
What
like
is
a whole
it?
nother
Was this-
conversation. We
was
got to
that-
have that in totality, because this
Right.
like
Yeah,
this would be like
I was going to ask the research
hours.
question real quick.
So
I was
it
just
was
going to ask the
the
research
reason
question real quick.
the reason they were doing that was because there was some study, sort of like what this article you brought in, was that men, and I shared this with Coach Love already, where they showed that men, there were more men who were 18, virgins at 18, and at 30 not having sex within the last year, and virgins more than women. And so they were breaking down those studies, and that's one of the statistics that came out, was this is what the risks that take the higher the body count, as far as not being able to pair bond with a male, because they constantly compare to their previous. So the more that happened, the less likely they were in a successful marriage. So even though the study wasn't like thousands of women or whatever have you, they took a controlled study and looked at these women who were actually married and divorced, how many intimate partners they had, and what they started to narrow down was, wow, what they're seeing is more women who had the higher the body count, the less happy they were in relationships, like couldn't maintain relationships. Now that was just on that
I even
one
hate
part.
that phrase.
So,
The higher the body count.
I'm using the word body count
Oh
because
my
that's
God.
our language.
I don't like that phrase either.
But that's just the language. I'm just using that language. But they were just saying intimate partners.
I
That means
promise you, I am
actual,
going to stand him and his doctorate degree in the corner.
No.
What
Body count?
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Okay. Oh, okay.
So I'm looking now. I'm definitely pulling up. I
And
had all this
sorry,
stuff
Coach
up.
Love. I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry. I was just wondering, because I was like, wait a minute, what kind of research was this? And what methodologies did you use? Mixed methodology? Did you use quantitative data? Did you use quantitative data? Like, what part of the country was this in? Like,
girl, I think that research was done by Kevin Samuels.
Here's the thing. It
was the last paper he wrote before he passed.
Oh my God!
I'm not gonna go there with y'all. I'm not going there with y'all. Look. No. But here's the point I'm making, because the topic that we're discussing is the lonely men. So that means exactly what's happening to the men, right? Mm-hmm. So if the men are actually, who are usually the ones who are the pursuers, most of the time, they usually court women, and they're opting out of that. You have to look at why that is. Men naturally want to be with women. So if they're opting out, that means something is actually interfering with that, right? It's interpersonal. So that's why I say the accountability of emotional intelligence, empathy, knowing how to talk to women, knowing how to communicate, lack of fatherhood. We know that's there. For a 19-year-old who knows the difference between right and wrong, like my homeboy, right, to say women are trash.
No, he doesn't, because he thinks that women and people are valued on their virginity. He doesn't know what the
no. I said right and wrong. I'm talking about right and wrong, meaning he can be tried by the law. He knows right from wrong. He knows, like, I ain't gonna go out there and kill nobody. I ain't gonna go out there and do nothing silly or whatever.
Okay.
For him to say women are trash, I know that was a general statement, but that's, to me, is a cry for help. That means communicate. So as soon as I asked him that, yes, he looked at virginity as discipline because he's a virgin. So he's looking like, if she doesn't have the discipline that I have, I can't measure her value. That's anybody. That's the same thing with financial. If you got more money than me and I get with you, you want to look at me and be like, this dude don't know how to manage money.
He didn't say money. He
didn't.
He went straight to the.
But this is a 19-year-old in his prime, where he's looking like, okay, how do I get out there? And, so it's a level of immaturity there too, but I'm saying he knows right from wrong, right?
I cannot give him the gold standard. I've got to go to Olu, because
standard.
he's been quiet. And then I'm going to go back to
what's going on, Olu?
Can I ask
that's my boy.
One quick question.
Okay.
Is that
go
okay?
Ahead.
Coach Love. If we are successful in the level of emotional intelligence when we're talking about men, what?
No. I said we weren't.
Oh no! Well, no. No. What I'm saying is that when we get to that level of emotional intelligence, when we're talking about men, when you're developing emotional intelligence and all that good stuff, developing that skill, exercising that muscle. I'm going to use your term because I hate it, but body count shouldn't matter.
I'm saying that was more biological. We're
Well,
talking
no,
about,
but biologically, like, okay, so
so biologically, men look for purity. That's something biologically innate in us. I'm needing you to understand men.
Okay,
It is.
this
It
crap.
is. Men don't like women with high body count.
Wait
I
a
don't
minute.
care
Hold
what
on. Let
you
me tell
say.
you. Let me just say this. You, your own self,
Oh
has
my God.
said that men will have sex with a woman
I'm
just
talking
for
about
pleasure.
no. I'm talking about to commit to me saying, I
If,
want you to be
if
my
they could
wife.
get it, they would take it.
No, you're talking to a man about men. Does that make
I
sense?
know you said that. You said that.
Wait, no. What
I
I'm
wish
saying,
I had some interns. I would be like, go get the tape.
wait. So
Go
we're
get
talking,
the clip.
no. We're talking about sex, but then we're talking about keeping a woman. We're talking about marrying a woman, like settle down. Loneliness doesn't mean not having sex. I'm
Mhm.
talking about straight up wanting to actually
I
be
thought we were
with a
talking about
woman.
emotional loneliness. I thought we were talking about emotional connection. So when we
No,
talk about emotional connection and
his
you're having
loneliness was
sex,
his loneliness was relationships.
yeah,
He's talking about, right.
there's loneliness
But she
within
was
the
talking,
relationship. Yeah.
But my point is, your guy that you just brought up was not having sex, and he's valuing another human being based off of them having sex. So the only reason I'm connecting those two dots is because you're holding up this gentleman at this high regard based off of this idea of sex. So it's not that I don't
y'all are not listening to me.
hold on. It's not that I don't understand that sex and emotional connection are two different things, and actually valuing a person in marriage is two completely different things. I am highlighting this at this level because you are holding up this young man, 19-year-old, that
I'm
is
not holding. I
uh,
gave you that.
saying, oh, he connects these dots at this level, and
No,
I
no,
just
no. See, y'all are not listening. See, that perception thing is wrong because I literally brought him up as a guy who literally is confused. I started that
I
conversation.
got
I said,
that.
I
I
have
got
this
that
like,
part that he was confused.
okay, ooh,
Yeah.
confidence.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
I was just
Coach
asking the
Love is doing
question
that
on like the
to dig at me.
biological thing threw me off. I was
So
like, wait a
the
minute. I've
no.
had
I speak to men all the time,
very loving
young and
relationships.
old, right? Young and old, right? So I'm around men. I'm in the military. My whole group of men, I'm letting you know as far as what they value, right? It's not saying that it's right. I'm saying that's what they value, right? We're not talking about right or wrong. We're saying when a man learns that a woman is like out there, trust me when I tell you, he's not looking at her to court her, he's looking at her to sleep with her because he knows it's easy. That's sex in that. But we're talking about relationships. When a man looks at a woman for a relationship, he's going to look for women of value. That's why I said we're equal in value, different in roles. One of the things that they value, yes, is something like that. And women, again, I think women know this because even women won't ever tell their daggone body count because they realize, like, yo, other people are going to judge them
I
for
don't
it.
think that's
That's not.
I don't think that is
No. Men wanting.
biological.
No.
You keep saying
Men.
that that's no, you saying that's biological for men
Can I
to
have this,
automatically
buddy?
think that way.
How you want to tell me what men?
That's the current nature. That is, that
How
is
do you tell a
always,
man what
you know
a
what?
man value?
TJ is in love with the stripper. I have to let Olu talk. I have to let him talk.
I
I
am
have
not.
to.
Look,
Hold
y'all
on.
are
Let me
so.
let him
I'm
talk, please.
so sorry.
Hold on.
I think the conversation that Dr. Ray is having, Dr. Lay is having, it's very interesting one. But I want to kind of dwell a little bit on the fatherhood, being lack of fatherhood in the house being the cause of men's loneliness now. And I think I can share a very example on that. I lost my dad when I was just 9 years old, right? And that was the first time in my life that I would say I experienced loneliness because for me, he would, even though he and my mom never lived together, they've been separated as long as I can remember. But he would always come every weekend to visit with me and my brother. So I always look forward to that, to that experience. And so when he was gone, one thing that I have to do, and I think most men do that too, is they begin to develop a coping mechanism, right, to be able to overcome that loneliness that they feel. And another time for me was when I came to America, just 18 going to be 19, I was kind of away from my family as well. So I experienced that loneliness experience as well. And one have to develop some kind of a coping mechanism as well to be able to say, okay, how do I deal with this now? You need to have some kind of like a re-engineering of your mental abilities to be mentally resilient, to be able to deal with the type of loneliness that you're experiencing. It could be emotional loneliness, and then we now take these to you wanting to now be connected to the partner, to a woman, right? So you've experienced this lack of fatherhood, that brought loneliness into your life. You've experienced the loneliness of you not being around your family and stuff. And now you want to connect with a woman on a very deeper level, the one that you would think should be in your life for a purpose, right? There ought to be a purpose for a relationship, right? Someone that, one would say, okay, it's good that you first know who you are. You have the mental strength to deal with yourself, right? You have the right emotional intelligence to understand who you are as a person before you go and engage with another partner, a woman in this sense. But you will feel like that woman will be coming to fill some kind of a vacuum for you. There's something that she will be able to fulfill. And I don't think, in my own humble opinion, I don't think most women are really willing to come and fill any vacuum in the lives of a man anymore. They want to very much be so autonomous in the way they approach their lives. They don't want to feel like they're coming to complement a man in any way. So even sometimes a man could even be in a relationship, right, with a woman, but he's still lonely because that woman is not ready to fulfill anything for him, right? Sex is great, but you could have sex all day long, but the emotional connection that is needed, the sense of belongings that both of you should share together, the sense of purpose, right, in the relationship is so important that I don't think, maybe it's both parties, but in my own experience, and I can share another story with that. I have a brother, for instance, that he everything you ask him, if you ask him anything, he will say, "Oh, my family, my family, my family, my family." For him involves his wife, his two kids, right, and that's all he cares about, right? That's all he wants to. That matters to him. Nothing else matters, right? His wife, his kids. This guy to sponsor his wife and his two kids from Africa to America because his wife and his kids. As soon as they get to America, the wife left him. We all told him that don't do that yet. First, come and stabilize yourself. Make sure that you are good before you decide to bring your wife along. But he said, I don't want to be lonely. I want to have my wife and my kids. I want to be here and all of that stuff. And he did it. The moment the whole guy, yeah, and I know that is just one personality, right, of a woman. I'm not going to use that to judge any other woman, but those type of experience, those kind of other people's experience that we experience could cause a bit of pain in another man's heart, that they will be a little bit more careful, right, when they're choosing to settle with a woman, right? Most especially when their purpose is not aligning, right? When they're not feeling like there's something that this woman actually sees in the man that he's going to settle with, and something that they're going to move ahead together, they're going to achieve whatever goal they want to achieve together. There has to be a sense of purpose in that relationship. I don't know if I'm making any kind of sense in that, but I think it's a process, and a man becomes lonely even when he's in relationships, right? Even when you have so many people around you, you could still become lonely, right? You could still become a single man. I can share another example of a great man that I know back home in Nigeria. He's a lawyer, very successful man, and his wife, they own a school, right? They own this nursery school at home. And he had told his wife that they should fire this particular driver because the driver is a little bit reckless. And the wife said, "No, we're not going to fire him." I mean, nothing sexual is going on between the wife and the driver, so that's not the
Mhm.
reason why she didn't want to fire him. But the wife refused, right? Disobeyed the husband from not firing this this driver. And tragically, this driver, about 2 weeks later, he drove the car and used the car to kill somebody, right? To kill a
Mhm.
child, which was tragic. And this man now went back to the wife and tried to explain to the wife, like, look at what happened. It wasn't as if I've seen anything, but look at what this person I've told you to fire 2 weeks ago, look at what it just did. Instead of the woman to understand and try to come together and try to understand that, yes, I'm wrong in this particular case, she literally make the man to be miserable in the house. The man could not divorce her because he's a pastor.
Mm.
He don't want to divorce her. He's a pastor, and the frown against that in his as a pastor. So they both live under the same roof,
Mhm.
even though the issue that causes them to have those conflict, I mean, the origin of that comes almost from her. I'm not trying to take one side here,
I think
but
I think that what the story that you're telling will get us towards the your 5P card game, but we're not quite there as of yet. But I definitely want to talk about how that can be helpful in managing loneliness. Um, Perry, I'm going to be coming to you next. I want to say this. I want to say a few things. Number one, correlation and causation are two different things. And I think we're suffering in this conversation by not uh, separating those. Um, I also want to say that anytime there are more choices, satisfaction goes down. That has nothing to do with women, has nothing to do with men. It has to do with humanity, period. And that's that way across the whole world. Okay? In any study, whether it's sex or whether it's potato chips, it works that way. Okay? Um, Now, this is just a personal statement I want to say. I am not saying that women or men should be sexually promiscuous. I'm not telling anybody to do anything with their bodies. I have my own set of personal views on sex that might be uh, on the conservative side. But what I am saying is this, that I just don't want to condemn anybody for what they're doing with their body. I don't think that is good. I think that we should um, have healthy thoughts about our inner man and let those things control um, our behavior, period, across the board. Okay, so there is that. I want to get Perry in here because I think he has some value to add there.
Okay, could you just restate the question? I'm sorry.
You know what, Perry?
I mean,
You can.
there was a lot. It was a lot going on
I
in
mean,
those dialogues.
it was
I went.
it was a lot going on. Um, let's bring it back. Let's bring it back
Okay.
because we went all the way down a path that I actually think does not address. It's not the biggest thing that men need to understand about loneliness,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, it is about connection and where are they getting their connection from, and more importantly, who are they getting their connection from. I personally think there's a greater disconnect amongst men than there is with their sexual partners. Like, I think men actually need men, and I'll do this example. We kind of talked about it earlier. there was a iconic show. It's called Martin. Gina, it had Gina on there, and she was, supposedly basically the perfect girlfriend. And then Martin had his boys. Okay. The fact of the matter is, if Martin didn't have his boys, he was out of balance. Although he loved Gina, if he did not have his boys and his boys' approval on the things that he was doing and how he was building his life, he was constantly out of balance. And they would do this thing like, give me love, a whole little man hug that they would they would do. Men need that. Men need productive, consistent reflection of being a man in one another's eyes. And what does that actually look like? If men don't have that, it really doesn't matter what woman they are with. There is a piece of them missing. So talk to me about how you address that issue, what you're actually doing about that, and certainly your opinion is valued.
Okay, thank you for bringing me back. Okay, just to touch back on the whole thing that we got sort of caught up in the weeds about. I think this typically happens when men and women have conversations now. There's usually, it's common. I go to my corner, you go to your corner, sort of thing, sort of thinking. And that's just how it is, especially amongst Black men and women. When you look at all the podcasts, it typically sort of happens, even when it's not sort of planned or it's sort of, it's sort of natural because we aren't as close as we used to be in terms of being family and in terms of having a respect for each other's opinions and being on a sort of level. I think women in general have taken a step that men may not always understand. Like at one point, just to rehash it, to what Dr. Lay was saying, men were the sort of alphas, and it's not alphas. That's not what he was saying. But men did care about things like body count, things like that, and so on and so forth. Now, when you listen to female rappers, they've turned to the men. They are the men rappers of the '90s now. We listen to Meg Thee Stallion, you listen to all of these, what feels like millions of women rappers. They are the aggressors when it comes to sexuality and things like that. And I think men aren't really ready for those conversations, honestly. Now to touch back on Coach Love's point about Martin, and kind of the to champion the two worlds. Someone recently said on social media, it made me think. And a lot of times when people attack, it feels like an attack on Black men. Sometimes it feels like it's hurtful, like wow. But then I think maybe they have a point. And someone was saying how men like women, but do men love women? Do men, love women like they love their friends? And I think back to who I was at my most toxic self, and being honest, I wasn't always privy to a lot of these conversations and thoughts because a lot of these things are nuanced and new, right? We've just now begun thinking about these things, or I can use an I statement. I've just now recently begun thinking about these things in the last 5, 6, 7 years. So my thought process before that was, when I dated, it was like my bros, and not to use foul language, over the hose, right? So it was like I would enjoy hanging out with my male friends more than I would my female girlfriends, company, dates, whatever. I think that was the era Martin was in, right? Where it was, he had a wife, he had there was a lot of wrong things with that show, even though we love it. One of the things is colorism, right? The way he treated the dark-skinned woman over the light-skinned woman. But when you look at the way he loved his friends, even over the way he loved his woman, you could think about that too. He did whatever for his friends. He didn't treat Gina terribly, don't get me wrong, but it was sort of that mentality of him enjoying his male friends even more than he enjoyed the company of Gina.
I want to point this out. It was literally, to me, that show had to take us on the journey of Martin getting permission from his friends to actually have a woman and hold her in high regard. If you would think about the progression and how the show is written, at the beginning of the show, there is a lot of angst in between um, the friend group and and Gina being his woman, and they say that he's whipped, he's this and he's that. Okay, because they had been friends for years, but there was a slow progression of where the friends started to value Gina as much as Martin was valuing her, and it was written in a way where it reflected the idea is that how men need the permission of other men in order to be in a honorable relationship. It's like they all had to come to maturity and honor a relationship together.
I think I think my take on that would be, counseling.
Mhm.
Men need, counsel from other men, right? And and so I think if you look at it from just hearing other men's perspective, right? I think men will be able to analyze what they want. Earlier, I think Dr. Lay mentioned, you know, something about the purity of what men actually desire, right? That men desire to settle with a woman that is not known to have been out there as much, right? Even
Mhm.
though that could be argued because some men, want a woman that has the experience, right? When it comes to whatever, maybe sexual experience, whatever. But overall, I think being able to know, to hear counsel from other men, I think it's very valuable to men. They see that as some kind of a, like, validation, right?
Mhm, mhm. That is an important word. That is a very important word that you're saying there. And before she has to run off, I really want to get her thoughts on what you just said and her closing remarks. I really cannot wait to have her back again and extend this conversation because really, you and Dr. Lay. Um, I just want to hang out and watch you guys talk to one another and have your brains battle one another. It would be a delight. Maybe I could get Steve in here as well. Maybe he could be a referee. I don't know, but
um I just want to touch on, like, I want to leave people with this, like, um we have to remember, we have to be careful not to utilize women as rehabilitation centers.
Mm.
We have to be mindful of that, because I think that's where that conflict is. Because if you have, like, let's say you have a preference, if one wants experience and one wants somebody who has a low body count, um, be able to have that emotional intelligence uh, to respect if you come across women who are just not your preference.
Mhm.
Um, I think it
Mhm.
comes down to, again, developing those healthy ways to communicate and trying to, I mean, there's going to be cultural influences. You're going to operate within a certain type of patriarchy. There's still racism, colorism, and so forth that we have to deconstruct. There's still sexism that we have to deconstruct. Even in, I have a master's degree in public administration. Even our current policies and procedures, we still have to deconstruct when it comes down to sexism and racism and so forth. Um, Developing emotional intelligence, especially for men, for Black men, is so crucial so they don't grow up and become abusive, or they don't grow up and have to have a woman as a rehabilitation center. And I think that's what I that's the main thing that I wanted to say throughout this whole thing, because there's so many factors of why young men are looking at women as objects, or why they're looking at women as like I hate this word, and submissive. It's not about being submissive or authority or dominant or anything like that. It's about communicating and working together, because you can't build a relationship by yourself. So to be healthy, you have to have a healthy relationship. You have to have two healthy individuals, and to do that, you have to actually work on that. Individuals have to work on themselves, even in relationships. Even within your relationship, you still have to have your identity. You still have to have your autonomy, because at the end of the day, nobody can live or die for you. But you do have your partner that's going to be there, if you're blessed to have your partner there to hold your hand as you transition. But they can't do that for you. So it's still important to have that own autonomy, and to make sure, and I'm going to go as far as to say, to make sure for us women that we don't have our men, if we're heterosexual, have our men be our rehabilitation centers as well. We can't put that emotional, what is it called, labor on each other. And we need to learn how not to do that within our relationships.
I think that we have to quit solving and thinking like we're in the 1950s. And it's not because something there isn't value there, but I feel that way of thinking was very much like driving on your spare tire, because it was necessary at the time. We no longer have to drive on our spare tire. It is time that we become fully inflated, using our inner man, as well as our strong mental health, to be fully developed people. We can no longer just allow men to, grunt and get at it and view themselves as just providers and protectors, and they throw their bodies out there to get killed. That is bad for them, for them, and bad for us as women. Once they become fully developed and actualize, they will stop just saying, well, your body count's high, so I I can't have you. They will be able to recognize the value of a full person. So I think the reason why men cannot recognize the value of someone who may have a high body count or not is because they don't know how to navigate it. It feels confusing to them. If they can't value themselves in their own inner man, they can't do it in you either. So anyway, I cannot wait. Literally, I feel like I have to purposely move some stuff around to get you back here sooner. You brought great value. I want to see you beat up Dr. Lace. No. No.
Exchanging information with Dr. Lace, because I was like, oh, okay.
You punched him in the eye. I saw you. I saw you, and Dr. Lay tripped you. I saw him. No, you guys are both very smart, and I like it.
I'll probably do that. I'll probably trip him after I get the DR. He's got the DR, so
right. No, I think you guys.
I have your. I got your account.
You guys both speak from a clinical level that I really appreciate, and we're taking these extremes and then making sense out of them, which is really great. And then Perry has a lot of good sense, so he's like the voice of reason. I'm gonna nickname him Moses.
Yeah, you got to have a middle person. You got to have a referee.
Right.
Right?
You got to have a middle person. And then I haven't gotten an opportunity to highlight this and uplift this, but Latoya and Dr. Actually, all of you guys, everybody should really get to know Olu's card game because it's the 5 Ps. And I need you, Olu, to speak to what your 5 Ps are. And then if you can just speak to how your game actually helps people develop in this area, because this is what the issue is. So many of us are realizing that there needs to be developed, but nobody knows how to develop. And you actually have a tool to help people develop in this. And so, Latoya, this actually might be good for your research. You might want to think about it. Okay, Olu, tell us about it.
Thank you so much. Dr. Rahim actually have a deck of my card game.
Yeah, and I use it too. So
And
thank you so much. Yeah.
he's been a great supporter of that. It's a very, I think the creation of this game for me, I think it helps, couple to really answer some of the important questions that they needed to answer among themselves. So when couple play this game, and it's not just for couple, but for different level of people, but the game is actually a game of 5P that the first P try to talks about purpose, right? Everything we do in life. I think relationships works best if there is a sense of purpose in that relationship, right? If both the man and the woman understand what their role is supposed to be and they both fulfilling what their role is supposed to be. So purpose is really very important. Somewhere down the road there's going to be problems that needs to be resolved, right?
Yeah.
And truly conversation, because my game actually want people to really have those deep conversation, because conversation actually help people to connect even much better, right? So we're going to have conversations, and type of conversation we're going to be having will has to do with like gratitude, right? Because gratitude is one key idea that is so important in relationships. So if we're going to have the best relationships, I think it's important that we have conversation about gratitude, conversation about spirituality. There has to be some kind of a spiritual connections between people, in this case a man and a woman, but spiritual connections between family, right? So there has to be conversation about how are we aligning ourselves spiritually. There has to be conversation about what is our take on charity. The idea of charity among households. Charity is not only when you go to a soup kitchen and you go feed the homeless. Charity could also be about sharing information with one another, so sharing the right information that will help the other person, right? That is also some level of charity that is being done. So my game really want people to engage and really have conversations, and not just random conversations, but conversations that touch on purpose, right? I have some words and phrases along the line of purpose. Conversation about problems. What are the problems that you're looking at in specific relationship that you're in right now, and how can you resolve them? We talk about the right mindset that one needs to have. If you're going to achieve those purpose that you're laying down for yourself, you need to have the right plan in place, to be able to go about achieving what you need to achieve, and you need to execute. So you need to perform. That's why the game is called 5P. So it's a game of 5P, but enough could be said about it without actually visually, seeing the content of the game, and seeing, how the game is played. Game is color coded with 5 colors, and the way to win is assemble 5 card in hands that have all 5 different colors, and there you go about winning the game. But I need to really explain this visually for people to really be able to see them. I'm sure someone like Dr. Rahim that have really played it and I've seen it visually how it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really.
Can you give your clinical thoughts on it and how you've been using it?
Yeah, I actually used it in 2 of my intakes. So I had to get, of course, clearance with my commander. I'm in the military, right? So we can't just bring anything in. But nonetheless, I went over it with my commander, and I brought it in with two new individuals who I wasn't seeing previously. And so what it did was, as far as establishing a rapport and understanding, the P's really gave me a focus in my session with them. They knew exactly what we were accomplishing for that session, moving on to the second session, and why we was using this card game as a way of distraction, but then also to make them more comfortable with divulging that information. So we often see this a lot in our initial sessions, people holding back information, not really feeling comfortable enough to let let the provider know what's really going on in their lives. So they need about 2 to 3 sessions to work out with it. This card game actually gives reference to rapport building, building trust, building a level of transparency between the two, and in doing so, while using something with our hands, and something that we can see, and something that we can actually reflect on together. So it was I'm looking forward to using it definitely more. I'm just in a different position now where I don't have multiple patients coming back to back kind of thing. But I was really grateful that Olu gave me an opportunity to use it.
That is excellent. Olu, actually, can you drop the link in the private chat so I can actually get it out to the people? Um, Perry, what are your thoughts on this, and how do you think that you could use a card game like this with your group?
The thing about the group that I work with is that the boys love activities. They are activity driven boys. So I guess it's definitely helpful. They love to talk about relationships. It is their favorite topic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something I think they could definitely be helpful for the young men I work with. But thank
Mm-hmm.
you for dropping the name of the game in the chat.
I would actually like to see a game, and I think your game really does this, but how men develop relationships with men, um, and how they can elevate one another. That is one thing that I love about the Village Path, is that you guys actually do that. You connect um, emotional maturity, mental health, along with masculinity. You're connecting that three-legged stool. I think it is awesome. And then you actually have a rite of passage ceremony. I wish that this would just break loose in all of the nations, but particularly in America where I live, because I think men are very tactile and they need something to say. Today, I am a man.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you got to think back. I mean, we talked about history earlier when Latoya was here, but at one point, black people weren't considered humans.
Hmm.
Literally.
Yeah,
If you look at the Mormon religion, they just now recognize black folks as being human in the 1970s.
right,
So to actually say "I am a man," which was a slogan at one point, was like kind of a literal thing.
right.
So
I
yeah,
mean,
claiming that absolutely.
even to the point where black people were cooked and eaten as a, we were food. We were no live different than a pig or cattle. So that's huge. But to take it off of race and just to put it back on the idea of being a man and what that means and the value in that in itself, um, I think it needs to be highlighted and it needs to be understood. It is as frustrating for me to have femininity be based off of a woman's virginity as it is to have a man masculinity be based off of how many women he can sleep with, or um, how tough he is. I think these things are shallow items that bring no real value to humanity. I think the things that are actually attached to our humanity is where our greatest strengths truly lie. So that's my thought. Dr. Lay, I can't believe you're quiet. Say something, sir. He's
Look,
on.
I'm taking it all. I hate when I put this on mute because I always forget that. But I'm taking it all in, and I think this topic in and of itself, when we talk about, the main thing was addressing, how did we get here? This is so important. I think for all of us to see, as far as if we're spending time, if we're doing the work, whether it's mentoring, educating young men who are going to eventually become young adult men and become old adult men or whatever have you, establishing healthy relationships with other men as well as with women, I think was the main um, highlight, I think, from this conversation and why that's important. It is going to drive different new beliefs and new values as we move forward in society, right? We're still trying to leave some of the old and establish these new trains of thought. And so I think that's super important, and using things like emotional intelligence and empathy in these different programs that we have where men can develop. These are safe spaces in and of itself. And so slowly but surely it is changing, more and more individuals. There's definitely much more work to do. But we are fighting against some forces that either don't want to see relationships come together. It made me think about what Coach and Latoya talked about, as far as the supremacy and capitalism. Well, she didn't mention capitalism, but I thought about capitalism as far as, how us being divided, how it generates money. I look at all of those kind of things and I'm like, man, we do get roped into a lot of things. So I don't want to be extreme, and I sure as heck don't want to be left behind either. I do want young men to grow into, or young boys to grow into men that can be competent and people can respect them. But we do have to control our narrative. We do have to control our own identity, and we can't leave it up to society, to social media, to none of those things. But they do have a great influence in how we look at each other. And so I think the more we spread the positive emotional intelligence, empathy, positive affirmation, I think, man, that's going to change their vocabulary. You change the vocabulary, you may start changing behavior, and hopefully the outcome.
I love it. I love it. All right. Olu, do you have a parting word?
Yes, I mean, I want to ask a question. I don't know how that question is relevant to what we talking about here, but a friend of mine just recently brought this to my attention, and he asked that, is it important for uh, men and women to marry within their race, right?
Hmm.
Marry just within their race, and or to go and cross marry, with other race. So that's one question. I don't know how relevant it is to this conversation. I think in some sense it is, because if you're feeling like the your race, if you're black, is not you, the woman that you're meeting or you're mingling with, they don't really have the same value as you, or they don't have that strength that you're looking in them that they do have, that complements yours to have a better union. Then you will have to look outside of your race, right, to say which women actually have that race. And maybe culturally speaking, they may still frown against it, for you, because I know there's a lot of other people saying, no, you should always stick to your race, always marry within your race, and blah 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 blah. So that's a kind of a side note. But to close this up, for me, I think overall, loneliness is a really important thing that we need to talk about. We need to really discuss, because it's really affecting how society will move forward. I think it's at the origin of many things that really helps the community, helps the culture, and so man needs to look at how we can better have a relationship, just like you said, whether with other men or with women. We need to have the right level of emotional intelligence, to be a bit more aware of who we are, how we're developing, the things that makes us happy, the things that makes us sad. We need to be in check to know that we have the right mental resilience, to deal with those things, and to continue to stay focused on the things, the values that matters. For me, I think it's important that we have a strong spiritual anchor, right, to really guide us. Spirituality needs to be at the center of those experience that we may have as far as loneliness is concerned. For me, that is what has helped me. We need to always constantly be grateful as well. We need to constantly have a good sense of gratitude, because gratitude really plays a great role. Let me for 1 second say, in our society these days, a lot of women as well as men, they don't have a sense of gratitude for who they are. So many women want to change, who they are, right? They're trying to be something else. They're not even understanding what their role should be in the society anymore, because they're not grateful for who they're already born to be, right? So there's this change that is happening, in a society that is a bit very scary. We're having a lot of women want to do extra surgery to be something else that they're not supposed to be. It is true they need to have this autonomous powers, to do whatever they want to do with their body, and be anything they want to be. But I think a level of being grateful for what you have already, for who you are already, it's so important to give you some kind of a stability, some kind of assurance that you don't need to go be something else all the time for you to feel like you have a self-worth, right? You need to know who you are, right? So for me, I think gratitude is it's so key. No, I think I would just leave with that. But I think ground for me, and the things that I want to push over and over again, is there has to be a purpose to everything that we do, right? If a man lack purpose, right? For me, if I'm going to settle with a woman, right, I have to see that that woman has a purpose that she's pursuing, and she understand my purpose, and in some ways we both able to complement each other's purpose, right? I want her to have a own sense of purpose. I don't want someone that would completely want to depend on me. Likewise, I don't want to be completely dependent on her, but we should be able to come to some understanding of what our purpose is on this earth, what we're fulfilling. Because if you're not fulfilling any purpose as a person, you will feel alone. You will feel lonely, no matter how much people surround you, no matter how much relationship you may have all over the place. If you don't feel a sense of purpose, right, that you're truly achieving something, then that thing is not worth doing at all. So that's the note I'm going to leave it on. And thank you for this opportunity, Coach Love. It's always a great pleasure to have this conversation, and to be with you. This is a great session. Thank you.
Awesome. It has been a pleasure. I want to tackle the comment that your friend made about marrying within the race. Um, I think people should marry within their value system that is connected to their behavior.
Um, can I chime in here? On my as I
Yes, yes.
depart,
But
because
before
I
I
am.
forget, but before I forget, the back of my statement
Mhm.
is, if in general we are the human race, um, and so that is very important culturally. Um, if you if you have beliefs that are very, very different from another culture, then you are going to have uh, problems. You know, I'm not sure a Jewish uh, person with their religion could really connect with a Muslim person and have a happy marriage because of their value system. But I think that Perry wants to get in and has some strong feelings on this. But go ahead.
Yeah, I do. I will say for me, and again, always an I statement. Love who you love. I'm not trying to police people's love at all. But for me, marrying a black woman was a revolutionary act,
Hmm.
and it was a well thought out act.
Hmm.
Just as the place that I bought a house at. I didn't want to live out in the sticks because,
Mhm.
when I come home from a hard day of work or the police pull me over, which happens, or um, folks don't treat me properly at work,
Mhm.
coming home to a black woman who understands and has been through it is very
Mhm.
important to me. And I'll use an I
Mhm.
statement again. And I've dated outside of my race, I've dated other cultures, and it is not the same for me. Um, so I would say, from my perspective, it was definitely important to marry someone of my own ethnic background.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
Both of us have family who've been incarcerated by the system.
Mhm.
Both of us have a lot of different similarities when it comes to being raised and things like that. So if I did it
Mhm.
outside of my race, the other person might not be able to stand that fully. So I would say for me, it was definitely important.
And I feel like you honestly said what I said, but based specifically to you. Um, you have a value system and you have behaviors that show up in your life that you need recognized. Okay. And so if you feel like only a black woman can do that for you, then you are connecting those, dots. But I would say this, you might find that, a person who is not a foundational black American might still have dark skin, but may not be able to relate to that experience um, in the same way. So it's not the skin culture that's really, I'm sorry, the skin color that's making that formal connection. It is the life journey along um, with everything that goes along with what makes community that is making that connection, because I cannot tell you how many people have how do they say it? Skin folks are not all kin folks. I think that's a
Yes,
good one.
that's true. I see your point, and you're not wrong. But I will say, like, when it comes to that, it's like, I'm sure if me and the brother Ulu sat down, we would have a lot of similarities, even though he is from Nigeria and I am from the eastern part of America. The African diaspora is one that's real. Afrobeat and hip hop have a similarity. It sounds
Right.
different, but the root cause is still the drum, right?
Right, but what is the belief system? But what is the belief system that is behind that? And I'll give you something. I I I will give you something very, very specific. Um, when you come from a culture where you are the majority, you think differently about how things should operate. And I'm not just speaking from one conversation. This is conversation after conversation. This is even known in the tech world. You know, hiring a Nigerian woman is not the exact same as hiring a um, a foundational Black American or an ADOS woman. And so it might count with your numbers, but culturally, it's not the same. Um, this is definitely showing up uh, in companies like Google and Microsoft, so much so that they are studying this. So I'm just going to tell you, it is not your skin color that's setting up your experience and life experiences. It is the totality of your journey through life. Skin color is not going to be the only depiction of how you view the world. There's a much broader value system beyond that. It really, really is. Go, Olive.
I would add to that, food, from my culture. I particularly, came from the southwestern part of Nigeria, and there is a certain food, that is my delicacy, and it will be very hard. And I've changed, I've been in this country for a good while now. I mean, I came here when I was just 18, 19, so I've been here for a while. I don't want to kind of put my age out there yet, but well, you guys could guess how old I am. But I still would enjoy to eat that particular delicacy, right? And even though I can easily go buy it, how there's several African restaurants, so it won't matter what woman I marry, if she could not make the food. But for many other men, that would be one criteria for them, that they want to marry a woman from their culture that could make that food, right? The language, being able to come home and be able to speak, to that woman that I marry, right? And also being able to have that conversation, would understand, just like the way Brother Jamel was saying, that he comes home, he's treated badly by the police on the streets. He's coming home to someone that will understand language.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
that's how it works, right? I think beyond that, for many other people too, and it will be a bit getting us too deep, right? Sometimes I've listened to these conversation of this guy, Dr. Umar Johnson, and and he's a very interesting fellow that really he's pushing for this revolutionary idea of keeping it within the race, and making sure that we don't move out of that race because of some bigger, he would go as far as talking about the bigger dynamics of things, on how we need to keep our race because our race is being diluted and all of that stuff, that we shouldn't try to dilute our race, that we should try and keep our race as pure as possible as we can. So, but that's a kind of a different layer of conversations, which may not relate to men being single, but that could also be it, right? That what is the main central purpose why you marry who you marry, right? What is the main thing? Why do you settle with this person? Like Coach Love said, your value systems needs to match, right? You don't just look based on the skin color. You need to have a match of value systems that both of you could relate. There's other people that will say, oh, I need to be able to speak my language with that person, right? This woman has to have certain strengths. She has to be someone that she's a bit emotionally stable. The woman will ask for the same thing too from the man. It has to be emotionally stable. He has to have this mental strength, mental resilience, as far as that is concerned. So, looking at all different dynamics of things, we need to just come up with this foundational understanding that let us, anybody that is going to settle, that is going to come together, they should very much understand the big why. Why are we doing this in the long run, not just for short term, but for long term, to avoid, speed bumps, in the future, right? That is going to happen because if, for instance, if I don't settle with a woman that could speak my language or even make an attempt to speak my language, right? You don't have to be able to speak it, but at least make an attempt that you want to learn it. You settle with my culture, right? It will be hard for me to really settle with that woman because I won't. There's no way I'm going to lose who I am by settling with a woman that I want to spend the rest of my life with, that she's not really willing to embrace my culture. I think it will be hard. She could be from anywhere, but she has to be willing to embrace, and I will be willing to embrace our culture as well. So we have to be able to blend our culture together. I think that will be another thing. Let me stop there.
I feel like this is like a whole like other interesting discussion that we could have, a 2 hour
Right.
discussion, and I would love to be a part of that discussion.
I think, you know what? There is much homework to be done. It is a good thing that Dr. Lay likes homework. Oh my goodness. I could not be more blessed this evening to be spending time with you guys. You fellas stay back stage, and I am going to say goodbye to our wonderful audience family. This has been a good discussion, we have just gotten into all kinds of mischief. I think that this subject matter is so big and so deep that every time we reach solution area, we find there's another layer to the onion, which I'm truly enjoying discussing and spending time with you wrapping this subject matter. So I'm just going to say thank you for spending time with us today, and bye-bye for now.
You're winning. You're winning. You're winning.